So here's a quick look at the reloading setup. I'll start out here. Here is the Rock Chucker 2, which is made by RCBS. This is the older one, so it still has the primer feed on it, which is really nice when you're loading a bunch. From here, to go along with that, we also have the Rock Chucker Piggyback 2 conversion, which will make it basically a fully progressive press. So every time you pull the handle, you'll put one empty case in here, then over here a loaded round will come out. So you do about 400 an hour, just to give you an idea. From there, get a whole assortment of reloading books. Some of these ones are pretty old, and once in a while you run into garage sales and stuff where somebody had some old powder from years and years ago and it's not in the modern books. We got some old obsolete calibers, stuff like that may not be in the modern books. In fact, I had to use that a couple times. We've got the rows of powder. And from there, we'll move into case trimmer. This is the case trimmer. Your case will go in here. This literally just spins. There's a cutter on the end, which will trim your case to length. Once you're done with that, this right here will take the sharp edges off. Simply hold the case in the end here. Turn it. There's also a cheaper alternative. This is simply a die. You'll put the case in there in the press, then just take a file the top. There's one option there. Then you have case lube pad. And the case lube is what I use. To go along with that, you also have brushes. And what you'll do is you put a little bit of case lube on there. I already got some on there. It's kind of hard to see in the video, but you'll take your brush, put a little tiny bit on there, rub it in the case mouth just for light lube. Then when the expander pulls back out, it'll pull out freely without getting stuck. Simply roll your case on here lightly, super light coat. That's all you need. And you also have other options like a spray. I haven't had any luck with the spray, but just kind of avoid it. Then also this is the shell plate. Goes in there. You see 5 stations at once. The other basic equipment you'll need are shell holders. You buy those individually in the calibers, or you just get one big box and done. What that does is it takes your case, and then it holds it in place, so you can run it up and it'll pull it back out. And what it goes into is a die set. For rifles or any bottleneck cases that are not straight, you'll have a 2 die set. This, you run the case into here, the pin here will pop the old primer out, and it will resize it back down to factory specs. And you have the bullet seating die, which will seat the bullet for you. It has adjustments on top. This is also an adjustment. You can use this for a roll crimp by pushing it all the way up into the die. It'll roll over the edge and hold your bullet in place. But also, if your cases are a hair too long, then they weren't trimmed properly, or one is a hair longer than the others, it will squish it. So this is actually a very good option here. This is called a factory crimp die. Basically, you put the cartridge in there, and this will squeeze together, crimp your bullet in place without any worry about rolling over the edge of your case or squishing your case. That's a way better option to go, in my opinion. End up getting a bunch of these die sets at garage sales and stuff like that. Don't have all the calibers, but I got friends that do. And as an added bonus, if you're getting military brass, well, a lot of people get 223s or 9mm brass. This is a primer pocket swager. This goes in the press. This is what you push the case against. And this will actually get rid of that pesky military crimped primer pockets for you. Take the crimp right out. First time you run it through, there'll be a, actually goes in here. Sorry. Anyway, goes in like so. And simply press it down. And that'll remove the crimp. Large primer, small primer. Gives you an idea. While we're talking about dyes, you'll see that some of these say carbide. Others will say titanium nitride. Those ones you do not need case lube for. You only use the case lube pad. It doesn't have that. Some of the older die sets didn't have it. Pretty much all the new ones do, but you still may run into the others at garage sales. These are some examples of bullet pullers. This right here is what we call a collet puller. You have a handle here. We'll screw into one of these collets. Different case sizes. That will screw on through here. Handle will go in here. Collet will go inside there. Simply screws in. Tighten it down. We'll hold onto the bullet. Your handle will be already up. And then simply you pull the case back down and it will remove the bullet for you. Which then you can loosen this up and the bullet will come out. That's one example. It works very well. It's slow. So I also have the hammer style. There's little teeth here. Goes on the rim of the cartridge. Put it in, tighten it up, take it outside on a firm surface. Rock, concrete, whatever you got. And hammer it. And the kinetic energy will pull the bullet out. It's a lot faster process, but it does involve going outside. And if it was minus 40 outside, this is the way to go. A couple other little things to consider. Get yourself some reloading labels. And some test weights would be good. And also maybe some primer sealer. You only use that for the good hunting loads. But here's a quick look at some powder options. It starts out at the basics. Simply powder measure set. It goes by volume, not weight. So we'll start right here. Look up your powder type. I'll tell you what each measures about the weight. So that's one option. It's fast, not the most accurate, but it works. Another option is the powder dispenser. Again, this guy goes by volume. Some of your ball powders and smaller powders are very accurate. Large rifle powders, not so much. Basically, each pull the handle, you'll dispense a powder charge. And one way to do it even faster is in combination with a scale. This is an older scale, and this is a powder trickler. Simply turn the knob for your fine adjustments, and I'll adjust this to where it's just a hair under where I want to be. Dispense it. You'll find it's about 1/10 of a grain, plus or minus. So you can get pretty quick with the powder measure. Here's an old one. You want to set it at 0. to calibrate it. This guy's pretty old. It's starting to get a little aluminum corrosion going. It's been around a long time though. Then there's actually an adjustment right here. Screw this up. Keep going until it hits 0. So make sure you're on 0, not 10th of a grain like I just did. There. And anyway, you kind of get the idea. From there, you move up to, this is the RCBS Charge Master 1500. It's fully automatic. It does help to plug it in for the video. Turn it on. Go through its countdown. I got this from a friend a few years ago for Christmas. It's actually a great gift. Use this a lot. Once you get used to one of these, you're not going to go back to that. And then simply calibrate it. The calibrate button. We'll say 0. Say stable. The button again. We'll say 50. One of the included 50 gram weights on it. Say stable. And calibrate 100. Add the second weight. Stable. You're done. Then you're back at 0. You're ready to enter your load. So, you want to load like 50.7 grains, for example. Give me 50.7. You would hit dispense, and it would stop at 50.7. The neat thing about these is once you empty it, put it back on. Once it senses it's back and it's back at 0, it'll do the next one automatically until you tell it to stop. Makes it really fast. So we're getting ready to load here in a little bit. This is a primer tray. This is how it works. Put the lid on super lightly. Shake it. There's little grooves in here. That'll actually catch the sharp edge of the primer and flip them to the anvil side up. Give a few good shakes. Put the lid on tight. Flip it over. And almost all of them are right side up. If you don't have one of these, you gotta do it by hand. Then we just take our primer tube. So let's grab the right one. Actually, I grabbed the small rifle, the large rifle. And you just feed them into the tube. And if you don't have this, what you have to do is, I'll show you over here. You load them individually, one at a time, in there, by hand. So if you're doing more than a few loads, it gets to be a pain. Now, you don't need much case lube to do this. Put too much case lube on, it will actually dent your shoulder. Just put some in there, rub it in. Before I put all of it in, well, like I said, I'll do the cases. I already done that one earlier. So this will make them pull back out easier. Let's do about 5. Then refill the brush. It's a very important step. Okay, all the case necks have been lubed, and this is an extra step. So if we don't have this option, you're actually going to have to do it manually one at a time. You pull the pin here, so pull the pin in the right direction where to pull it. Then to load the primer, you simply pull back, and it loads the primer for you. Now you just take your case. You want to make sure it's all cleaned and inspected first, at least inspected. Make sure it's not getting too thin around the neck. You'll start seeing it separate right here. You'll start seeing cracks right here. You can see from there that's an awful lot of case lube. It's too heavy. trying to escape. You simply put them in your press. This is the resizer die, so it goes all the way to the top. It goes all the way to the top. Push your primer in, pull down, seat your primer gently. You can set it off if you put too much force on it, so don't press too hard. You need to raise it back up. Pull it out. That is why lubing the case mouth is so important, as you can see. And the primer goes in, just feel and make sure he's okay. So here's a little closer look at the resizing operation. Again, all the way to the top. Pull back, and that'll feed you a primer. You push it down, lightly, stop. As soon as it stops, stop. Raise it up ever so slightly till your arm comes back out of the way. And then just feel, make sure it's settled. So your next question is bullet selection. Generally I have two go-tos, personal preference. Here's the Hornady. I like using the Super Shock tips with the interlocks. Never had a problem with the interlock. I've taken a lot of big game over the years. Never had a single problem. That's my go-to for bigger, a little more dangerous stuff. Those work fine too, but the nozzle partition is always a very good bullet. Pretty much that is been about the top of the line that I have found. I had no failures at all with either bullet. Again, personal preference. Get the box open. There we go. So in this case here, we're going to be loading the interlocks. And next thing you use, figure out your powder you're going to use for it. In this case here, I'm going to go with the IMR 7828. When you're starting out, this is your starting grains suggested. I've already tested it all the way up to the max loads. We're going to be doing 91 grains of IMR 7828 in this load. Okay, I've already showed you how to set this up, how to zero it out. It's all set up, zeroed out. This powder I'm using, only keep the one powder out that you're using at a time. There's no way to mix it up. Again, I can't stress this enough, when you're doing the charger, RCBS charger, make sure the drain is, had a little bit stuck left in there, but make sure it is closed. That's a major thing to look for. It'll take a little bit of practice to figure out how much powder to put in. Basically what you're doing is you're dumping in 7828. Just want to make sure you have a little bit extra, but not a whole lot extra. That's less to dump back in. Always put the cap back on so you can. Powder measure runs out in the middle, then it's kind of a pain to get it going. And we are using 91 grains to in this load, so we punch in 91.0, and we simply hit dispense. It's got to prime all the way through, so it's a little bit slower than normal. You'll see it slow down when it gets pretty close to 91. It'll beep at you when it's done. Again, this is the first charge. They go way faster after this, you'll see. And it beeps, it's done. And you pour it in to your case. And also your case block's an important part of this. Make sure it fits good. If it wants to bridge on you like that, you just keep tapping. You get the aluminum ones that don't do that as bad. What I do personally is once it's charged, I move it over before I begin again, and then set it back in. It's going to read 0, and it's going to start refilling it. This time we do a little bit faster. And you'll notice when after it hits 0, after it's got the load out, it'll go to a load count, so you keep track of how many you loaded. You want to take this off here, it should say, oh, the load count 2. It's number 2. I'll do the same thing. Sometimes it flows in by itself, sometimes it don't. That one did. Then just repeat that another 18 times or however many cases you got. We're down to the last one here. It'll zero itself out. I'll start dispensing. And also, that's what I was talking about with the powder, to get it pretty close, but not a whole lot extra. And it'll tell you how many grains you use total, and give you a complete load count. Use the number 20. And nope, I'm not gonna do it this time. Anyway, the newer powder cans made it super easy to dump the powder back in, whereas the old ones have a little tiny thing on top and you have to use the funnel for it. Major difference. They really did a good job on making those better. And there's the new reloaders compared to the old reloaders. One of the reasons you want to move this funnel every time is to make sure you don't double charge. It's hard to do with some of these rifle calibers and the bigger powders. You can see there's no way you can physically do a double charge in there. It'll overflow and waste a bunch of powder. But some of the smaller powders and faster burning powders and pistol calibers, stuff like that, it'd be easy to do, so you always want to double check. Just once you got all your stuff loaded up, you want to dump everything back in. So I just take the weights out so they don't bounce around in there. Unplug it. I'll close this so the powder doesn't spill all over. You kind of tilt it back a little bit because there's powder in the feed tube here. Then your can's all ready. Throw the can, open her up. It'll take a little bit of rocking back and forth to get it all. It's not a one quick and done. Once you're satisfied, oh, and there's some more. There's some more. Once you do that a few times and nothing else comes out, probably gonna make a mess, by the way, but anyway, once you do that a few times and everything quits coming out, then you're good. All of our cases have been charged with powder, as you can see, all been primed. This is the bullet seeder die. You simply put your bullet up in here. This right here is your adjustment for your bullet. I'm not sure why I loaded last with it, so I'm just going to run it up a little ways, bring it down. And what I do is I already know where this has got to be. This is called the cantilever right here, that little groove in the bullet. And this has got to be right towards the, just over the middle of it. Get your overall case length that you need. I got the die set down so the crimp does not, the roll crimp doesn't hit it, because I'm going to do a factory crimp afterwards. We're getting pretty close. You can either do this by hand or you can screw it back and forth. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my initial one set by hand, just a hair under. That's one of the reasons we're getting a little bit bigger press too. That feels pretty close. I felt it move. Nope. Takes a little bit of adjustment in the first round. Screw it down just a little bit. Almost. Okay, now we're right there. Just a hair more. You can see we're absolutely perfect on the groove. And just enough there to catch with a fingernail. Now what I do is I'll put it in. If you had a shorter press, this would be even worse. Then I'll back off the cedar the bullet seater. I'll run the press all the way up as far as it goes, and run this down until it stops. Right there, stop. And then I'll do a second test round. Just run it all.
I was trying to zoom.
So we had a little technical difficulty right there, but you got to see the camera person in action. Yay.
You're gonna cut that out.
Maybe I'll cut it out. So anyway, I'll just run a test around up here. It's all the way up. Stop. And you see now we're about a uniform depth. Some of the cases are a little bit longer than the others. It's actually the case length itself because I didn't trim these. So double check your stuff. You can get a manual caliper, or you can get the electronic one. Make sure it's zeroed out. See your overall length. See how you're doing. There's going to be a little variation on these. Just a little bit of slight angle will make a major difference when you're talking thousandths of an inch. And somehow it's in millimeters. 0.6. Not bad for eyeballing it. And this is our test round, which should be very similar. Yep, they're all within specs. So, one of the first things you want to do, see what we loaded, is fill out your tag. In this case, we got a Hornady 180 grain SST, which is also the interlock bullet. And we used IMR 7828 at 91 grains. Primer, we used a Remington 9.5M. Case is mixed. We had one whole batch, it'd be one thing. Times loaded, that's good to keep track of. We've got magnums. The other ones that go through the case is good. In this case here, this is a batch of brass I picked up at a gun show, so I have no clue how many times it got loaded. It might be good for another 3 loadings. Some might be in the last one. I don't know the date. And any notes. I do that first. Don't forget your caliber too. Then I'll give you a look. Earlier at how the factory crimp die looked. And here is how it works. Screw it all the way in. This is already pre-adjusted. Also, for accuracy, you want to tighten all this stuff down. And then you simply put your cartridge in, raise it all the way up, and you can see on top here, well, these will come together and crimp it. And it is impossible to crush the case like you can with the roll crimp. It comes out nice and crimped, and once you do that, you simply wipe off all the sizing glue, make sure it's all off, and I'll start putting them away as they go. So, once you get your last one crimped, get them all cleaned off, you can put them in. This guy here used I had the cases before, used a marker, kind of put some marks in there, assuming for how many times have been shot. I just use one of these, and again, you want to make sure you got a good bullet. Now we're all loaded for bear. In this case, Alaskan brown bear, or as the lower 48 would say, grizzly bear. These things are 1,000 to 1,500 pounds of mean muscle to make a mass. You want a bullet that'll work in the first try. And they have a little attitude once in a while. So if you get charged by one, you definitely want a bullet that works without question. So you're kind of trusting your life to these sometimes, depending on where you're at and what you're after. I'll just put my label on there. And then that's it. So I mentioned reloading books at the beginning of this, and actually keep a different assortment. This one here is Sierra, for example, that features all Sierra bullets. This is a Hornady, which features all Hornady bullets. Lyman, which is kind of generic, covers a lot of everything. Different bullets, different powders. Different powder manufacturers have different loads too. Nosler, as you'd imagine, for Nosler bullets. Then also another option is you have books that are just for one caliber only. And a lot of the powders change. For example, if you look back at the old Hornady book, let's pick a page, any page. The only powders in here are IMR powders. There's nothing else listed. It's also got some of the old calibers. That's 257 Roberts, which may be kind of hard to find in the new stuff. And contrarily, if you go to the new book, this new Hornady, you'll see there's all sorts of different powders listed in here from all the different manufacturers. Some books will list some powders, and the other books will list other powders, so you can kind of bounce in between. They also have the apps now from the powder stores, bullet manufacturers, that will actually cover a lot of it. So anyway, hope you enjoyed. The final step on these is actually, because there are hunting loads for, is to actually put some primer sealer on them, which you put on kind of like a fingernail polish. Put it around the edge of primer, just a little tiny bits, all it takes. It's supposed to prevent moisture from getting in. It's never had a problem with it without it, but again, if you're betting your life on it, probably a good idea to use it. Just an extra step. Thanks for watching.